Whatever the truth about air losses, what couldn't be denied was the considerable damage the raid caused in Damascus itself. The targets were the Syrian Defense Ministry and the Air Force headquarters, which Israel claimed were legitimate military objectives. But the bombs also demolished the Russian Cultural Center and several houses in a fashionable residential district. Damascus wasn't the only target for Israeli planes that day. Also attacked was this power station at Homs, one of the biggest in Syria, supplying 1/5 of all Syria's electricity. It was completely destroyed. Even more damaging was the bombing of the Homs oil refinery. The Czech-built plant cost $20 million and produced 1 million tons of refined fuel a year, most of it for Syrian domestic consumption. 80% of its capacity was lost, and the wreckage was still blazing 24 hours after the attack. But if the Israelis regarded Arab oil as a target, the Arabs themselves saw it as a weapon, and one they could use with effect far outside the theaters of war. Besides threatening oil supplies, the wars also strained the new relationship between Moscow and Washington. Material losses have been enormous for both sides, and without further supplies of arms and equipment from the great powers, the Arabs and Israelis would soon have fought each other to a standstill. But both America and Russia felt obliged to support their client states. In response to a Russian build-up, the US Sixth Fleet in the Mediterranean was strengthened by the addition of 2 aircraft carriers and 2,000 Marines. But despite this apparent great power involvement, few experts believed either side would commit forces directly unless one or other of the combatants was in dire peril of annihilation.
Indeed, the reason why we believe that a long-term settlement in the Middle East is so important is the danger that the Middle East may become, in time, what the Balkans were in Europe before 1914. That is to say, an area where local rivalries that have their own momentum will draw in the great nuclear powers into a confrontation that they did not necessarily seek or even necessarily start.
The boundary problem is going to be the crux of any peace talks, even more intensely than it would have been before. And the meticulous choice of where a peace boundary is and what are the guarantees for ensuring its non-violation. This is a matter affecting the national survival, and it's not going to be solved by people waving a hand or waving documents and asking us to put ourselves into a situation of potential suicide. In other words, this problem of how to build peace and how to establish a peace boundary is a crucial and an intricate problem and not a frivolous problem.